Happy Monday again. Also, I missed welcoming two new YouTube members, David and Graham, because YouTube just doesn't tell me when I get new members. So welcome and thank you for your support. Let me show you what I've got going on. The Jeep. Steering is slowly progressing and evolving. Thought I was going to have to undo my tie rod flip, but now I don't. I was having all sorts of clearance issues. Because I had my drag link in front of my tie rod, and the tie rod was going to hit the pitman arm. There's not a whole lot of room between the frame and the tie rod with the tie rod on top, but kind of a fist is about right, so I think it's pretty good now. I had to move the drag link behind the tie rod and use a shorter pitman arm. I had a 7-inch pitman arm, and now I have this nice 5-inch one. This is hardwood, so it should be pretty solid. Actually, I'm waiting on a new one, but for mock-up purposes and making sure that this worked, that was actually a pretty slick way of doing it, and I think it's good. I also had to go swap my tie rod ends here so that it's a Y-link instead of a T-link, because it was going to hit the shock, which also I now have shocks on here. But now, the other advantage about this wooden one is, actually it's not on the jack stands right now, but I think I can, I can't, but since that's not splined on, it can just slide back and forth. It makes it a lot easier to check articulation and everything. So everything is clearing right now. I'm waiting on getting the real pitman arm to finalize steering box location, but I'm kind of starting to mock this up and think about how I want to mount it. And this has been giving me some cause for concern and trying to figure it out, because two of the bolts, there's 3 bolts on this steering box, one at the top, which is up above the frame rail, and then 2 that'll be in the frame rail. A lot of times people will just make a mounting plate, weld that on, but it wouldn't be able to actually bolt the thing onto it because the frame rail's in the way. So sort of my thought on my approach to this is going to be, how would they have done it at the factory? Well, at the factory, they had holes that went through the frame and were reinforced, which is what's now holding in this cross member. So I might as well just drill through the frame, put some reinforcements in, weld that in, and have that be my mounts, and then basically just build another section of frame up here, tie it into this shock mount, probably plate across the shock mount, tie it in there, build that up, and that will give me something to bolt to up here. Again, put like a tube through it so it's nice and strong and sturdy, and I think that will work. So I might start cutting some plates for that, but again, like I said, I'm waiting on that pitman arm to finalize the steering box location. So it has been a giant pain. I do now have my double U joint attached to my power steering unit, which is attached to the steering wheel. So if I turn this, that moves. And this was also a pain because the shaft coming out of this is a metric spline that you can't buy, an aftermarket U-joint for. So what I did was I took it was a basically stock replacement one, took that U-joint apart, took apart the double U-joint. The bearing caps, the outer diameter is different, but the inner part of the cross is the same. The length of the cross was different, so I actually had to use the surface grinder and grind down the cross a little bit, but now I actually have a functioning double U-joint, so I can make that bend at the right angle. So obviously progress on that has been frustratingly slow, and I'm trying to do a video every week, so came up with another thing that I been wanting to do, and that's just give my lathe a little bit of love, because it's an 80-year-old lathe and has some issues with it. So what I did was, well, you can't even see it, but this hand wheel, the shaft was super sloppy and loose. So I took it all apart, took the carriage off, basically just polished the shaft on this so it was a consistent diameter, and then made a bronze bushing, bored this out, pressed it in, reamed it to size, and now that doesn't flop around. The other one that had been bugging me was I had a little carriage lock handle on here, but it wouldn't clear over the tailstock. So I made another one. This one's stainless steel, and that clears over there now. So now, if the tailstock is locked in place, I can still lock and unlock the carriage and move it It does hit this bolt or nut that's at the bottom here, but it's unlocked at that point, so that doesn't really matter. So that's cool. I also wanted to, under here, this shaft is super loose too. And I want to fix that. Might cut down on the gear noise a little bit, probably not much. But I don't have the right size bronze for that, so that is on the list of things to do. And the other thing I discovered was the half nuts are pretty much shot. Actually, you can see if that's engaged, that's not engaged, that's engaged. You know, I've got a lot of movement there. So I need to rebuild those, but I also need, it's actually the same size piece of bronze I need for that. So I'm waiting on that, but I think I have enough from the first round of doing things to it to make a video. So I'm gonna get that out tomorrow, and then I'll do another one on the half nuts and that reverse idler shaft right there. So that will be more content that I can get out. Something that I did for myself that I showed a little bit of last week that is not going to be content was working on this stand-up paddle. Ooh, really long. Real happy with how this came out. It is a pretty good facsimile of the real thing, and by the real thing I mean this is a Jim Snyder paddle. This one's 18 years old, I think. He's sort of the grandmaster of wood paddle building now. So mine is a pale imitation of it, but I am real happy with how that's coming out. It's got a coat of epoxy on it that needs to dry, another round of sanding, and then some polyurethane over it, and that will be ready to take to the river. So I am going to go ahead and shoot a little bit more video for the lathe repairs, and then basically keep sitting around waiting for more Jeep parts to show up. So as always, thank you for your support and have a great week.